As we are talking about democracy, what is your opinion about judiciary and its independence to safeguard democracy? Because I personally feel, being a teacher of law for more than a decade, that judiciary has helped us to a larger extent, going by the various decisions right from Keshwananda Bharati till Joseph Shine or Shaira Banu or Shahbanu Begum's case.
It is easy today for anyone to lampoon Indian judiciary. I have myself done it because I've been very, very disappointed with the response of Indian judiciary from the lowest to the highest to what is clearly violations of constitutional and legal systems. I cannot imagine that this lynching and the rule of the bulldozer could have taken place in this country without acquiescence from the judiciary. I hold Indian judiciary responsible for this it's not just a lapse. I think this is a massive failure in their minimal duty as the constitutional court of this country. Having said it, if you look at the larger record, if you look at the larger record of Indian judiciary, there are 2 or 3 things which have surprised me, and I take positively surprised me, which is the jurisprudence of Indian jurisprudence on social justice, especially on affirmative action, has been more positive than I would have imagined. If I compare it to American Supreme Court and how they have dealt the question of affirmative action, Indian Supreme Court has one of the 2 mics, so we can switch. Indian Supreme Court has had a fairly decent record on affirmative action, minus the EWS judgment. Supreme Court has by and large acted in ways to protect those constitutional features which enjoy public acceptance. Whenever something does not enjoy public acceptance, then Indian judiciary has just buckled down. The Ayodhya judgment of the Supreme Court simply cannot stand legal scrutiny. It's one of the embarrassing judgments. So my own sense, so just to give a larger picture, I think, and in that sense probably Indian Supreme Court is not the exception. Judiciary cannot stand up to popular opinion. And second, judiciary has not been able to stand up to strong executive. And in that sense, I personally like Gautam Bhatia's description of the Supreme Court becoming an executive court. For the last 10 years, what the Supreme Court has done is, I would have said, shocking, if only I had not seen the performance of the Supreme Court during the emergency. It's the same performance once again.
Yes. Yeah, my name is John Worth. You spoke about the Ganatantra, that's the republic of what you spoke. This was the earlier Sanatana Dharma of the republics were there, and then there was a rebel probably with Buddhism, Jainism, or the recent Bhakti movement, or for that matter the Sikhism as a part of the growth. So are you suggesting, or would you look at it from a disparate view of what Sanatana Dharma is being projected, or what you spoke about religion, or what as Pinarayi Vijayan is talking about, it's different from what the recent issues which are there? How do you look for a democracy in this aspect?
I think we tend to do a disservice to ourselves and we tend to help the BJP RSS by picking their concepts and projecting it to areas and times where it simply does not apply. If you look at the context of Ganatantras and the idea of Sanatan Dharma, I don't see the connect unless you can show me that there was a connect. The idea that everything in our past was somehow connected to some wretched form of Hinduism, and everything to deal with Hinduism is connected to some wretched social practices. That is an idea I do not buy. Unfortunately, and I know some forms of it were actually endorsed by no less than Baba Sahib himself. I can understand why Baba Sahib needed to say that, because basically he said that Hinduism is nothing but caste inequality. I can understand why he needed to say that 100 years ago. I do not see why you and I need to say that today.
So, well, both of you.
Hello, my name is Kanishka. I wanted to ask you, as you talked about the need to add constitutional limits on majoritarianism, or more generally on autocratic powers. Do you see that India has lessons to learn from what happened in Bangladesh over the last 6 months, which would teach us something?
Absolutely. You see, what happened in Bangladesh is, and not just recently, for quite some time in Bangladesh, the Hindu minority has been discriminated against. After all, there has been exodus of Hindus from Bangladesh to India. The reasons were not merely economic. The reasons were about minority being ill-treated. And the form of majoritarianism which is being executed, but I would not get into comparing their majoritarianism with our majoritarianism. But what's happening in Bangladesh is majoritarianism. And certainly this has to be constitutionally circumscribed. And the reason for that is this, that democracy remains a democracy. Democracy remains a morally legitimate regime only if everyone has the possibility of being part of the majority one day or the other. If someone can see and say, I'm born with a wrong name, in the rest of my life I can never be part of majority, then why should I participate in this farce called democracy? So therefore, the constraints on majoritarianism, and not just about religious community, it has to be about languages, it has to be about any form of, with majority you can do these many things. You can do many things that I would disapprove of, but here is a red line. You cannot cross this. It has to be built into constitution, and not just on religious issue. Today we've reduced the question of majority minority into just the religious issue because that's the most dominant one in our country. But think of majority from any other perspective. And one of the principal functions of constitution has to be to constrain majority.
Hello, I'm from Christ Junior College. My name is Ayud Mukherjee, and as a young leftist in the 21st century who still believes in the 21st century, and being a young leftist is very hard. And since the stagnation of insurgency as well as the relative failure of the communist parties in many communist parties in the whole of India in the electoral process, what would you say this leftism, traditional Marxism, Leninism, as
while a young leftist would be disappointed with the political electoral performance of the official left parties, a young leftist can take heart from many other things. Number one is that the constitution of this country happens to be a leftist constitution. This is why the RSS is so troubled by it. It happens to be a leftist constitution. They like it, they may not like it. Second, I would suggest to you that a certain left orientation is built into the popular psyche of this country. The country is ready for the left is not ready for the country. As I keep saying to my friends, forgive me this metaphor, कि तुम्हारी प्रॉब्लम ये है, लेफ्टिस्ट दोस्तों को मैं कहता हूँ, तुम्हारी प्रॉब्लम ये है कि तुम कहते हो कि क्रांति आए लेकिन मंगलवार को आए और लाल साड़ी पहन के आए। अगर क्रांति बिना लाल साड़ी पहने आ गई और मंगलवार नहीं शुक्रवार के दिन आ गई तो तुम उसको भगा देते हो। So let's be open to revolution even when it's not in a red sari. And once you are open to that, you would find this country actually has enormous space for what was considered left. And let's go back to the roots of the word left. The word left, when it originated, had nothing to do with Marxism, communism, or socialism. It was about anti-establishment. People who would question things, who would dare to take a stand which was different. And if you go to that root sense of the word left, 21st century can be a century for the left in this new sense of the word.
I might be a bit low on coherence. So first I'll try to summarize what I understood from your talk. So essentially you are saying that the mechanisms of democracy have to be evaluated with the ideals of democracy, and then we need to maybe improve on those ideals and try to re-enchant democracy by working on these ideals. Now I will now ask two questions. So the first question is that let us say that we have an ideal form of democracy. These ideals that I did not hear you explicitly say them, but let us say liberty, equality, fraternity, the 5 things listed in our constitution. And if these are attained, or if we go towards attaining them, then do you not think that unless we attack private property, unless we attack exploitation of people by a few minority, unless basically the economic basis of exploitation which capital carries out is brought into this discussion, then we will be doing lip service to re-enchantment of democracy. And the second question, or you are free to respond to that, is that you spoke of nationalism as saying the good elements of nationalism. Just 3 examples. Varian Kunnat Kunja Ahmed Haji led the Mopila revolt in 1921 in Kerala. Congress party completely dissociated from them. They were a significant force. The Royal Indian Navy ratings in 1946 rebelled in Bombay, Calcutta and Madras and Karachi, and this was the final nail in the coffin of the British Empire. Congress party completely, this is the leading force, Muslim League, all of them dissociated and how do you say, banned violence. And even after that, like he was saying, CPM, for example, also did not let the Tebhaga struggle carry forward. So all of these does not mean anything unless the base is attacked. Yeah,
I think I responded to her question by saying that in a country where system of political equality is formally instituted, where you have capitalism, patriarchy, and caste order, I do not see how political equality has any meaning or can be realized. So my ideal is not those 3 words. My ideal was all human beings having equal power to control any significant decision that affects their life. So I'm completely with you, not just capitalism, patriarchy and caste order as well. These fundamental inequalities would not allow democracy to be realized. So there are 2 ways of handling it. One way is to say, oh, democracy is bourgeois. The other way is to say, well, this is not democracy at all. So I would take ideals of democracy and radicalize them. I would take the more radical interpretation of democracy. And for me, therefore, Republican democracy is actually that radical idea. And I would then critique every existing political form by that. So we are on the same page. The legacy of nationalism is not the legacy legacy of Indian National Congress. My nationalism includes Birsa Munda. My nationalism includes Baba Saheb, who was not part at all of the mainstream national movement. My nationalism includes Bhagat Singh. So why should I, you see, the thing that intrigues me so much is our propensity, almost our desire to carry battles of the 20th century into the 21st century. Bhagat Singh and Gandhi, or let's say Ambedkar and Gandhi, the fact is that never saw eye to eye with each other. So Bhagat Singh, the Ambedkar and Gandhi did not go with each other. Does it mean that Ambedkar's legacy and Gandhi's legacy cannot go together? Whether they went together with each other was for them to decide. Whether their legacies can go together or not is for me to decide. That's what we should do.
We have time for just one comment, and Asma, and we'll finish with Geeta Menon. Asma, Geeta Menon.
Okay.
Level playing ground questions being raised.
My question, when you spoke about civilizational pride, you said three things: nationalism, constitutional pride, and religion. My last point is on religion. I mean, religion is inherently patriarchal, inherently non-inclusive, and these are the fault lines that the BJP used. Wouldn't it be better if we just kind of maybe took religion out of public life, relegated it to a very private space, and say that it should not have any role in in our, let's say, public democracy?
I would express a disagreement, and I would do to religion exactly what I have done to democracy. I would say there is the idea and the ideals of religion, and then there is an institutional orthodoxy that comes with religion. In most religions of the world, institutional orthodoxy has undermined the ideals of that religion. So instead of turning my back to the religion as such, I would simply pick the ideals of that religion and turn it against the institutional orthodoxy of that very religion. This is what Kabir did. This is what all the social reformers did. This is what I believe Father Kappen did. You see, I'm a second generation atheist. Atheist, I wouldn't say. I'm second generation agnostic. And I suspect that's why I'm pretty relaxed about this by now. The more I think about it, I find that my atheist friends are about as religious in their conviction as anyone who's a religious person. I feel, I could be wrong, but I must say honestly what I feel. Religion to me looks like a language. Is a language inherently anti-women? No. Every language can be used for murderous expression. Every language can be used for the worst abuses against women and so on. Every language can be used for love poetry, for peace and everything. I simply increasingly see religion as that open-ended resource, which can be used this way, which can be used that way. My teacher, Sudipta Kaviraj, I must remember him. He said one thing which I've never forgotten. I hope some of you would remember this. He said, Jogen, you can quarrel with words, never quarrel with alphabet. Because if you quarrel with alphabet, then you are not making sense to the other person. The other person doesn't understand what you are saying, and you are not understanding what they are saying. Use the given alphabets and create as revolutionary words as you wish to create. For me, increasingly in most parts of the world, for most people, the language of religion is the given alphabet. I want to create revolutionary expressions from that given alphabet. If that alphabet comes from Quran Sharif, that's it. If it comes from Guru Granth Sahib, it's fine. If it comes from Ramakrishna Shiva, all these are alphabets. You can create words and sentences of your choice from that. This is what we learn from people like him. That's what I would want to do. Certain self-criticism must be expressed in public. I think the sheer arrogance of secularism and their sheer illiteracy of religion is astonishing.
We are in the mood of re-enchanting democracy. Is there any option? See, we have get to know for right-wing politics and leftist.
Looking at the whole world, looking at what is correct, and sticking to that, no matter what people say. That is the Samyak Marga. And centrism so that is the beautiful ideal. And centrism can also mean something utterly vulgar, which is to say, wherever the world happens to be, I'll be in the middle. The world moves here, I move here. The world moves here, I move here. Because I'm centrist, And then world moves here, I'm again in the center. That is ridiculous. This form of centrism which is being promoted, and commentators who call themselves centrist, they are just, Hindi mein expression hai, bin pende ka lota. I don't have a good English expression for that. That is no centrism. Please never do that. Centrism, a Buddhist samyak drishti, that's beautiful centrism. But then you decide, you look at the world and you adopt a madhyam marga.
You can continue after Geeta is done. Geeta?
Starting from a point of agreement with what you have said, I can see 2 or 3 roles that democracy can play. One, of course, as I've already responded to a couple of friends, for me, as long as strong caste inequalities continue to structure opportunities in our society as they do, conditions for level playing ground do not exist. And for me, that continues to be a society, a democracy that aspires to be a democracy but is not quite a democracy. Second thing I would say is that actually political competition can rupture some given caste equations. And in that sense, I really would say one of the few things that Indian democracy can claim is that it has ruptured the upper caste political dominance in a way that would not have happened unless this competitive politics of elections came into being. Look at Bihar, look at Uttar Pradesh. Today we can find 100 faults with Mayawati and her politics, and I'm a critic. But the fact is that it is electoral politics of the BSP variety that allowed Dalits in Uttar Pradesh to sit on the cot, to be able to ride a horse. It is sheer electoral, the competitive electoral politics of the vulgar kind that we all detest. That has a great achievement. In Bihar, if this thing called EBC is being heard, it is only because of the sheer numerical issue of. So what competitive politics has done is that it has given greater power to communities with numeric strength than would have been the case in the absence of competitive politics. That's my limited case. And third, we should not forget what Rajni Kothari said in the 60s. He made a very powerful argument. He said, everyone talks about casteism in politics, and that, this has been a bane from 50s onwards, everyone has been talking about casteism in politics. Kothari said, look closely. It's not caste which has captured politics. It is politics which has captured castes. Politicization of caste is actually a far more powerful tendency. So I would look at these things as well. Otherwise, basically we stand on the same ground.
Friends, in the 4 to 5 minutes that I have a very pleasant task to thank both Kirtana and Yogendra for being who they were. They were graceful. They were passionate in investigating very, very complex issues. And in very nuanced ways, they deconstructed so much. They hid their scholarship uh, behind these lovely thoughts that they presented. They never pretended to be anything other than they are. They reflected their own life journeys. For that, we say thank you very much. I believe you yourself are on a path of wisdom and you are leading us, pointing us to that direction of wisdom. So thank you and travel well. The very best in your campaigns, in your work.